They stayed for a while longer in the cave before descending the hill and returning to Sakori via Nasik. A day later, Merwan Seth and Sadashiv were sent back to Pune. During 1920, Merwan Seth's individual human consciousness was gradually being re-established in the gross world. This was a period of intense spiritual concentration and one of agony as well. Not only did Merwan continue banging his forehead on the stone flooring of his room at Baba House, but he would also at times closet himself in a dark room on the second floor at Behramji's house in a crowded, less affluent area of the city. There he would sit in the dark for days and nights without food or water. He would not allow anyone else inside the room, and when he emerged, he would appear exhausted, drenched in perspiration, as if having done some arduous labor. Merwan Seth's consciousness was merged in infinite bliss, but it was his spiritual duty to come down and regain awareness of the gross world. This descent is excruciating, for the God realized individual's consciousness descends out of formless infinity into the worlds of countless forms and limited states, through the mental and subtle planes into the grossness of the world. Persons embedded in the material world commonly experience suffering and pain. All beings in the gross world suffer, and Merwan Seth had to become conscious of the grossest aspects of this world in order to function on the same level of human consciousness. To do so, Merwan Seth elicited the help of a Harijan named Bahadur Khan, a lowly sweeper employed by the municipality to clean the roads and toilets of human waste. Merwan Seth went to Behramji's house one afternoon with Bahadur. After removing all his clothes, except for a small loincloth, he sat on a footstool. He requested a bucket of excrement from Bahadur. Although Bahadur respectfully objected, Merwan Seth insisted. Bahadur went nearby and brought a bucket of human excrement and rubbed it on Merwan Seth's body, from his neck to his toes. While Bahadur waited outside the room, Merwan Seth sat in seclusion for an hour or so. Afterwards, Merwan Seth took a cold water bath under a tap, put on his clothes and left. Bahadur then disinfected the room with phenyl, locked the door, and handed over the key to Merwan Seth personally at the toddy shop. Bahadur was given a glass of toddy, and then he sang until late in the evening. This phase of Merwan Seth's work alone in seclusion for periods ranging from 1 to 2.5 hours was part of his daily routine for about 2 to 2.5 months, according to Belly. No one except Bahadur knew what he was doing, as Bahadur was strictly ordered not to disclose it to anyone. One account states that Behramji and Sayyid Sahib arrived at this room one day and were aghast when they saw Merwan Seth with dried excrement on his body and in his hair. He instructed them to boil pails of water and give him a bath, after which they applied fragrant oils and antiseptics. Bahadur, the illiterate toilet sweeper, became a poet, and his compositions praised Merwan Seth, Babajan, and Upasni Maharaj. Merwan Seth found pleasure in Bahadur's efforts and encouraged him to sing. He expressed how pleased he was with Bahadur's obedience. Until his last breath, Bahadur Khan had great respect for Merwan, Belly noted. Bahadur was perhaps the first follower of Merwan before and after God realization, although there were many at the time who loved and respected Merwan. Nobody can compare with this innocent Harijan. He loved Merwan from the depth of his heart and eagerly obeyed any of his orders. Merwan says covering himself with human feces is difficult to fathom, but it is indicative of the tremendous amount of physical gross suffering necessary to facilitate the process of coming back down into creation consciousness from the God realized state. Upasni Maharaj did similar acts of self effacement by bathing a leper and drinking the bath water, sweeping the sewage out of gutters, and even casing a dead horse while vultures devoured the carcass. Age could only marvel and weep out of gratitude at this act of sacrifice on the avatar's part for the sake of creation. Later in 1920, Mirwan Seth told Sayyid Sahib, I wish to remain in a secluded place without the slightest disturbance. Can you find me such a place? Sayyid Sahib suggested a few remote locations, but Mirwan Seth did not approve any. At last, Mirwan Seth told Sayyid, I have chosen the Bhorgad cave near Nashik, where Upasni Maharaj has fasted for almost a year. I want you to go with me. Sayyid Sahib agreed. They took a train to Nasik and walked through the wooded area to the village of Gavalwadi, where they climbed the Bhorgad hill and found it the cave that Upasni Maharaj had shown Mirwan Seth. Sayyid Sahib stayed along the rocky hillside, while Mirwan Seth remained in the cave alone for 40 days and nights, fasting only on milk which Sayyid Sahib would bring from the village each day. After the 40 days, Mirwan Seth left the remote region and stayed at Sayyid Sahib's family's house in Nasik. While there, he instructed Sayyid Sahib to telegraph all in Pune, Sadashiv, Behramji, Gustadji, and others to come to Nasik to be with him. Sayyid Sahib was profoundly impressed with Mirwan Seth's great spiritual strength and attributes, but no longer liked the name Mirwan Seth, believing it sounded too ordinary. When those from Pune were gathered in Nasik, Sayyid Sahib brought up the topic of changing Mirwan Seth's title. Each man agreed, but what new name should they give? One of the men suggested Mehru Baba, meaning Great Father, but that was not approved. After several other choices were suggested and rejected, Sayyid Sahib himself in the end proposed the name Meher Baba, meaning Compassionate Father. It was immediately endorsed by all. Soon after, they returned to Pune, including Mirwan Seth, now rechristened Meher Baba. It seemed to age that the whole purpose of the men coming to Nasik was to choose this new name, which was to remain for all time. Another Muslim who became intimately associated with Meher Baba was Abdul Ghani, whose family members were neighbors of Mirwan's family in Butler Mohalla for almost 15 years. As mentioned, Ghani, as he was called, was a close friend of Mirwan while growing up. Ghani's father was employed in the military accounts department in Pune and was transferred to Calcutta. Later, during World War I, he worked in France. The family, however, stayed in Pune during the course of the father's travels. Ghani and Mirwan had been in the same classes together in high school and college, since Mirwan had quit college after his contact with Hazrat Baba Jan. Ghani had lost track of his friends for over 7 years. In the meantime, Ghani had finished college and became a homeopathic doctor. After graduating from Deccan College, Ghani joined the Medical College of Pune, but he left without graduating and instead studied homeopathy for 3 years at a college in Calcutta, obtaining the degree of LHMS. He had married and moved to Bombay, where he opened a homeopathic dispensary on Sandhurst Road. He was also appointed an honorary magistrate a munsif, and functioned as a subordinate judge in a small claims court in Bombay. Hence, he was addressed officially as Dr. Abdul Ghani Munsif. One day during 1920, Baba was at Munshiji's house with many of Munshiji's Muslim friends who had gathered to meet him. Ghani, who knew Munshiji well, happened to drop by on a casual visit. Seeing his boyhood friend after so many years, Ghani slapped Merwan on the back and exclaimed, "Merwan, you are here? I thought you might have been dead all these past years. Whatever happened to you anyway, old friend?" Hearing this, Baba only smiled. However, the Muslims present did not like Ghani's familiar way of addressing their guru. Ghani glanced at those in the room and sensed their reproach. "Merwan is my old friend," he explained. "We were on the same teams together when we played as boys. We were classmates at St. Vincent's and Deccan College. We lived in the same neighborhood, but Ghani's remarks fell on deaf ears, and the devotee's eyes held scorn. Munshiji quoted the adage, "A friend of the past is an awkward customer." Alas, meaning that an old friend is a bad client in business. Ghani was taken aback, thinking, "What did I do wrong? Is there something disrespectful in what I said? Why do this fellow misunderstand my intention? And why are they paying so much respect to Merwan?" Baba, however, intervened and broke the tension in the room. He had his old friend sit near him and talked affectionately with him, reminiscing about their boyhoods together. Baba ended by advising, "Ghani, you should visit me whenever you come to Pune. I will always be happy to see you when you come back here." Shortly after Baba left, the group of men confronted Ghani, saying, "Don't you know who Meher Baba is? How dare you talk that way in front of him? He is no ordinary man. He is a Qutub. He is connected with the imperfect masters Baba Jan and Tajuddin Baba." They explained Baba's recognized spiritual status, and each one described his experiences in Baba's contact. Ghani apologized, though he did not understand what they meant. Later, Ghani would visit Pune frequently to see Baba, who would take him to Irani restaurant in Charbaudi, opposite Baba Jan's seat. There, over cups of tea, Baba would initiate discussions on various topics, particularly politics, and ask probing questions of Ghani, who would always reply in a lengthy way about the political situation in India. Ghani's complex explanations would have tired a normal man's mind, but Baba would patiently listen to Ghani's long-winded answers. During this period, although Ghani was deeply influenced by Baba and would stay until late in the evening at Munshiji's house, Ghani had not yet recognized Meher Baba as his spiritual master. Among all of Baba's friends and early disciples, Ghani was considered the most intelligent and was even nicknamed Socrates. Because of the size of his head, even this enormous intellect would bow at Meher Baba's feet eventually. A series of incidents was instrumental in deepening Ghani's faith in Meher Baba. During 1920, when Ghani was visiting Pune, Baba decided to go to Bombay for 3 or 4 days to attend concerts. He invited Ghani and told Belly to come along to keep Ghani company. At first, Ghani had been reluctant to join, citing various excuses, but Baba demolished each reason and Ghani soon agreed. It was during the monsoon season, June to September, and Pune had been dark and cloudy continuously for 4 days. In Khandala, a town along the way to Bombay, it had rained continuously for a week. The sky remained overcast as the group boarded the train in Pune. As they passed Talegaon, Baba remarked to Ghani, "I don't think we will reach Bombay." Ghani was preoccupied reading the newspaper and remarked a bit scornfully, "What do you mean? The train is headed toward Bombay, and if you say it won't arrive there, you must be either a peer or a madcap, and I know you're not a peer." Baba replied, "You have a bad habit of ridiculing everything one says. Listen to me. Not only do I think, but I positively know that we will not reach Bombay, and you will find out what I say is true." With amusement, Ghani replied, "Tell me, do you speak only concerning ourselves, or for all the passengers as well?" Baba frowned in annoyance, saying, "Of course, what I say applies to all. This train will not arrive in Bombay." "Perhaps not. Maybe it will proceed to Persia or Turkey instead," Ghani joked. Belly intervened, "But Baba, if the train will not go to Bombay, then where will it go?" "It is possible it might return to Pune." For his companions, it was difficult to believe that the train would turn around after covering only a short distance, when there seemed no reason to do so. Ghani scoffed derisively at Baba's words. Nonsense. Baba remained quiet in response to Ghani's protest. But Bailey prolonged the topic, saying, "Ghani, Baba must have some sound reason for saying this. Why else would he declare such a thing?" Ghani remarked, "You seem to be an idiot also. Don't you know that Merwan was asleep when we left Talegaon?" "Certainly not," Belly retorted. "He was absorbed in his thoughts at that time." "But what does your remark have to do with my question?" Gunny said, "If your brain was not full of sawdust, you would have noticed that it was after leaving Talegaon that he spoke of such a ridiculous event. He was abruptly awakened. What he was talking about was only a dream he had, so it would be better if he just forget what Baba said." Baba interrupted, "Undoubtedly, you are right that I spoke after leaving Talegaon. I admit that. But I will tell you further that we will have to go back from Nerar." "Merwan, please end this unpleasant conversation," Ghani burst forth, irritated, "or else I will soon be accompanying you to a lunatic asylum." Bailey started thinking that Baba was purposely playing a trick on Ghani. Ghani agreed that to pass the time, Baba was indulging in a joke. The train arrived in Lonavala, continued on to Khandala on schedule. Torrents of waterfalls from the Khandala hills were rushing into the valleys below, and the lush green scenery was a beautiful and refreshing change from the city. The train steamed ahead, passing through the mountain tunnels and arriving in the town of Karjat. There are two engines pushing the train from behind disconnected, and the train continued its course, descending toward Neral. By this time, it was raining heavily, and the showers did not let up the entire way but increased as the train approached Neral. Ghani and Belly started wondering if perhaps the train might be delayed. Baba was sitting still, resting his head on the window pane. He had not said a word after their discussion and had not moved. He seemed intoxicated. Some of the passengers became restless and started moving about, but Belly and Ghani paid no attention to them. After a long wait in Neral, they learned that heavy rains had flooded the tracks between the villages of Badlapur and Ambarnath, and it was now impossible for the train to proceed to Bombay, just 50 miles ahead. Suddenly, the conductor announced that the train was going back to Pune. Upon hearing this, Ghani became uncomfortable. As the train headed back, thoughts overwhelmed his mind and he stared at Baba as if longing for an explanation. Ghani had called Baba mad, but now his own state of mind was not that of someone mentally disturbed. Belly was also stupefied. Neither man uttered a word. Baba himself broke the tension by casually asking, "This is Neril, isn't it?" "Yes," Billy replied. "It is the same Neril that has crushed our hopes of a holiday in Bombay." "But why? What is the matter?" Baba asked. Billy spoke up. "You know the reason. You foretold that the train would not proceed farther than Neril, and now you claim you don't know why?" "To tell you the truth, I don't know anything else about it," Baba replied, seeming genuinely perplexed. "I myself wonder why I predicted such a thing." Belly, irritated by Baba's remarks, blurted out, "I cannot believe it. Like a prophet, you foretold what was going to happen, but you could not have done so without some sound reason. You cannot tell us that you don't know why you predicted this." "Of course, what you say is true," Baba replied. "But what I say is also true. It is beyond my comprehension. How I could have foretold this? Thinking it over, I believe that it was not I who spoke, but someone else. It was some power whose medium I was that made me speak accordingly." Gunny, who had remained silent throughout this exchange, could not bear it any longer and interrupted. "Merwan, you really make me wonder what kind of man you are. I do not want to argue with you ever again. I request, however, that you do not predict such things ever again in my presence. I am now afraid of you and the power that is within you. I fold my hands in respect before you. I now know that you know everything and I bow down to you." Thus, after a horrendous 8-hour journey, they found themselves back in Pune. Their Bombay excursion was cancelled and they went their separate ways. The railroad offered passengers the option of continuing to Bombay via Dhond and Manmad, but Baba was no longer in the mood to travel. Belly and Gunny later conversed about the incident that were convinced that Baba had purposely planned the whole affair to demonstrate to them the spiritual power. Their faith in his omniscience became a strong conviction from that day onward. Another passenger on the train that day who did not go on to Bombay was Abdul Karim Abdullah, later known as Ramju, because he was born in the month Ramzan according to the Islamic calendar. Ramju, 21, was a married cloth merchant in Pune and had met Baba briefly at a gathering at Munshiji's house. He was immediately attracted to Baba's living flame and, as he remarked, curious to know more about this Irani saint. Although their paths crossed several times in Pune, Ramju did not have another opportunity to be in Baba's close company for another 6 months. In mid October 1920, Upasni Maharaj and his disciples traveled to Madhav Bagh, a suburb of Bombay, for Dashera. Dashera is a Hindu festival commemorating the victory of light over darkness, the triumph of Lord Ram over the demon king Ravana. Recounted in the great Indian epic poem Ramayana, the story goes that Ravana was a king who was devoted to his guru. One day he asked his guru if he would achieve mukti, liberation, in this lifetime. His guru said he would not, unless he was killed by Ram. Therefore, Ravana plotted to anger Ram so he would fight him. Ravana abducted Sita and hid her. He then lied to Ram that he had seduced Sita, which angered Ram so much that he fought him to the death and killed him. At Maharaj's invitation, the group was joined by Merwan Seth and a few of his Pune companions. During one program, the Saint Gadge Maharaj came for Upasni's darshan and sang bhajans before him. Merwan Seth was seated beside Upasni. Since 1919, Gulmai had been a regular visitor to Upasni Maharaj's headquarters at Sakhori, where she had met and talked with Meher Baba many times. She had also gone to Bombay for the Dashera program. Gulmai and her husband, Kai Khushru, 42, had two sons named Rustam 20 and Adi 16, and two daughters, Piroja 9 and Dolly 7. Adi had seen Baba at Sakori a few times when he had visited his mother there. Adi was studying at a Parsi boarding school at Panjgani. He initially went to Sakori only at his mother's insistence as her escort. But when he saw Maharaj, he spontaneously fell at his feet. Gulmai's other children did not meet Meher Baba until he came to Ahmednagar later in 1921. Maharaj told them, I have poured my entire spirituality into Merwan. You must stick with him through thick and thin. I am now an empty vessel. Gulmai's contact with Meher Baba increased during 1920 as she came to Sakori more frequently. In December 1920, Baba asked her if she would like to accompany him to Nasik. She agreed and returned to Ahmednagar to prepare for the trip. After a few days, Baba showed up at her home in Ahmednagar and was welcomed to stay the night. That evening, a singer was called to entertain him. It was during this occasion that Baba commented to Gulmai's husband, Kai Khushru, that he would one day become Khan Sahib, an honorary title conferred by the British. Kai Khushru took it as a joke. Baba repeated his prediction in all seriousness, and a year later, the distinguished title was conferred upon Kai Khushru. To Gulmai, Baba remarked, You will be like Baba Jan. Gulmai doubted that she would ever be on the same level as Hazrat Baba Jan and said so. Turning to Babu Cyclewala, who was seated beside him, Baba pointed to Gulmai and repeated emphatically, It is a fact. You are like Baba Jan. The next day, Baba left for Pune with Babu Cyclewala, but did not take Gulmai with him. Accompanied by Gustaji, his mother Mimo, and one of her lady friends, Baba and company traveled to Nasik via Bombay. In Nasik, Baba, Mimo, and her companion stayed at Sayyid Sahib's family house. After several days, the ladies returned to Pune while Baba and Gustaji traveled to Ahmednagar. They stayed at Gulmai's home, and on the next day, Baba asked her to accompany him to Sagori for a week until the Hindu festival of Sankrant. She agreed. At Sakori, Baba showed Gulmai the room that Upasni Maharaj had designated for him, saying she could keep her luggage there. The room had not been swept, and Gulmai cleaned it with his permission. Afterward, she went to visit Durgabai. At dusk, Yashwant Rao Nandram Boravke, 30, one of Upasni Maharaj's close circle members, arrived and stayed with Baba until he was to meet with Upasni. On Friday, 14th January 1921, Sankrant was celebrated at Sakori. Upasni Maharaj's men and women disciples assembled and performed puja before him. Upasni remained in his usual gunny sack while the women adorned his body with their gold ornaments. Later, many poor people from the neighboring villages came to share in the feast and Upasni distributed clothes to them. Afterwards, several of the poorest were bathed, including a few destitute lepers. Meher Baba helped Upasni bathe them. A Zoroastrian woman named Pilamai Hormazd Irani of Karachi had come to Sakori for the first time for the celebration. Pilamai and Gulmai were distant relatives through marriage. A year or so previously in Bombay, Pilamai had met Gulmai, who was there visiting her brother. The two women became closer during this visit. Pilamai confided her problem with depression to Gulmai, who suggested she meet Upasni Maharaj, who had helped Gulmai overcome her own malady. Pilamai's depression centered on the untimely death of her youngest brother, Aspi. At her suggestion, Pilamai brought her children and stayed in Sakori for a month. When Pilamai first met Meher Baba, she recognized him as the person whose face she had seen a few years before in a portrait of Zoroaster. She had heard Zoroaster say, I am God, and I will soon meet you. And here he was. One day, Pilamai and Gulmai were sitting near Baba, and he asked Gulmai to sit closer, saying, Sit here, mother. I have something I want you to understand. Every Sadguru has a spiritual mother. Durgabai is Maharaj. Narayan Maharaj and Tajuddin Baba have one also. Similarly, all perfect masters have spiritual sisters too. Likewise, you're my spiritual mother and Pilamai is my spiritual sister. I have a past link with both of you through many lifetimes. I'm telling you the fact that I'm your son and Pilamai, I'm your brother. You're most fortunate. Taken aback, Gulmai replied, I know nothing about spiritual facts. I'm not equal to even the dust under your feet. I'm not worthy of anything spiritual. I'm a simple woman, quite tired of life, with the one desire to stay near Maharaj always, to serve him and die at his feet. Baba looked at her seriously and declared, I am Maharaj, and Maharaj is myself. Only the bodies are different. I am his son. Do as I tell you. Gulmai was ordered by Upasni to always bow to Merwan's wish, so she accepted what Meher Baba had declared. Later, Baba confided in her, You and your whole family are dear to me, and there is a certainty of us staying together in the future. Even if the whole world goes against me, you and your family won't leave me. Several days passed. Baba was sitting under the canopy of the Hindu temple in Sakori with Durgabai and Gulmai. Paintings of different Hindu gods had been hung inside the canopy. He began telling them the story of Sudama, a devotee of Krishna. When Baba finished the story, Gulmai asked for another, and Baba replied, How can I explain everything? Gulmai pleaded, Baba, you know everything. Baba smiled and then said, When one visits Bombay, one goes to some particular place. One does not see every nook and corner of the city. Why I don't explain everything is similar to this. After a week, Gulmai's husband, Kai Khushru, arrived to take her home. At noon, all gathered for lunch in Pilamai's room. Baba also came and sat down to eat. Gulmai remembered that being Sunday, it was her one day per week to fast. She got up without eating. Baba remarked, Never mind, have lunch because it was Upasni Maharaj's order. She politely refused. Baba insisted that she should eat. The tussle reached Maharaj's ears and he ordered Gulmai to eat. The incident served to demonstrate to Gulmai that it was Maharaj's wish that she defer to Meher Baba's wishes in all matters. After lunch, Baba took Kai Khushru aside and began giving him spiritual explanations and telling stories about Maharaj. In the evening, Kai Khushru and Gulmai returned to Ahmednagar. Two Irani sisters who also came into Baba's close orbit during 1921 were Freni Novroj Driver, 47, known as Freni Masi, and Daulat Jahangir Irani, 45, known as Daulat Mai. Freni Masi lived near Baba Jan and could see the ancient woman on the street from her apartment window. She was attracted to Baba Jan and became a daily visitor to her. It was in Baba Jan's presence that she first met Baba and was drawn to him also. Freni Masi told her sister about both Baba Jan and Meher Baba and took Daulat Mai to see Baba Jan one day. On another occasion, Freni Masi took Daulat Mai to meet Meher Baba at Sadashiv's house in Kaspapet. A program of devotional songs was being held, and after it was over, Freni Masi introduced her sister to Baba. Upon meeting Daulat Mai, Baba inquired, Is there something you wish to ask? Daulat Mai could not think of anything. Later, Baba repeated, Is there anything you wish to ask me? Finally, she told him, My daughter Piroja has been feeling ill and suffers from a loss of appetite. What should I do for her? Baba replied, Take her to Udwada, where the fire of Zoroaster is kept burning in the temple, and afterwards she will become all right. After a few minutes, Baba again inquired, Is there anything else you wish to ask? Daulat Mai remembered a woman she knew who was still unmarried. Though the woman was then almost 40 years old, she told Baba about her and he answered, Take her to Udwada also. Having faith in him, Daulat Mai followed Baba's instructions and took her daughter and the woman to Udwara. True to his words, her daughter recovered. But even more surprising, when they returned to Pune, the spinster was approached by a man who offered to marry her and she accepted. From the first meeting, both sisters, Freni Masi and Daulat Mai, had tremendous love and faith in Meher Baba, and their connection was extremely significant. Daulat Mai, on Meher Baba's order, later maintained silence for many years, and her younger daughter, Mehera, became his chief woman disciple. During June of 1921, Shireen Mai had a significant dream similar to that one she had dreamt when Merwan was a baby. Later, narrating her dream, she said, I was sitting on the doorstep of our house. Merak was sitting under a tree across the lane. Suddenly, I saw the delicate figure of a beautiful Hindu girl with her hair tied in plaits, three golden flowers pinned in it. The delicate figure wore jeweled necklaces and bracelets. A small boy was by her side. They emerged from the well in our courtyard and approached Merak with outstretched arms. Merak rose and stood before the girl. I came forward and asked the girl, Why are you here? What do you want? Who are you? The girl answered, I am Paramatma. I want to take your son with me. I held Merak in my arms, saying, I won't let my son leave me. Then Merak spoke, Let me go, don't hold me back. I want to go with her, mother. I held Merak tightly by the hand and ordered the girl to leave. Suddenly, the two figures jumped back into the veil and disappeared. Mimo awakened from the dream and called to Bobo. The dream had upset her and she described it to her husband, who consoled her. Baba was sleeping in the next room. Behramji and Gustadji were also staying in the house that night. Baba awakened when Mimo did, and after overhearing his mother narrate the dream to Bobo, he started laughing. He called Behramji and Gustadji and narrated Mimo's dream to them. Then jokingly he said, Mimo had this dream. Bad, bad, very bad. Mimo overheard her son joking about her fears and she became even more upset. Her feelings were hurt. She shouted at him, Merak, why do you laugh? Tell me, what does the dream mean? I know the meaning, he stated and then repeated with amusement. It's bad, bad, very bad. Mimo was annoyed by his remarks, but he refused to reveal the meaning of the dream. Paramatma was indeed calling him, and age would soon see how he joined her. Meanwhile, on 21 June 1921, Sadashiv's wife, Geeta, passed away, giving birth to a daughter. Baba was among those who attended the funeral. The bystanders at the ceremony were quite impressed at finding Muslims, Iranis, and Parsis in the Hindu funeral procession. This march demonstrated to the people of Pune that the spiritual master Meher Baba was above caste, creed, or religion, and that people of every community were included among the spiritual leaders' followers. One day during 1921, Dr. Ghani came to Pune to see Baba, who inquired, How's your dispensary going? Ghani complained, Despite my best efforts to obtain certain medicines from America, I have not received my orders. This delay is a nuisance, and I'm wondering what to do about it. Write one more letter to company in America, Baba suggested. But bring that letter to me first. Let me write the address on the envelope and we will see what happens. Ghani compiled but remarked, I have been trying to obtain these medicines for the past 2 years. The company does not even reply, so I doubt if one more letter will help. Baba replied, You will see, you will receive the medicines on the day I set foot in Bombay, which I plan to do soon. Ghani wrote out the order. Baba then wrote the address on the envelope and Ghani mailed it that day. After some days, Baba decided to visit Bombay. Ghani was in Pune at that time and travelled back to Bombay with him and his companions. Baba wearily said to the group, Let's go see the great doctor's dispensary. When they arrived, Gunny opened the door and noticed a letter in the mailbox. It was an invoice from the American company about the dispatch of the medicines he wanted. Discovering Baba's words to be coming true, Gunny was again profoundly impressed with Meher Baba's omniscience. Gulmai and her family were living in the Pasi Dharmshala in Shani Gali Lane, Ahmednagar, and during 1921, her husband Khan Sahib had completed construction of a new house nearby in the Nalegaon locality that he named Sarosh Manzil. Gulmai desired that Upasni Maharaj come and inaugurate the house before they moved in, but her orthodox relatives were averse to the idea of Maharaj, a Hindu, opening the house. Hence, the ceremony was performed according to the Zoroastrian religion. A local Mohammedan saint named Gilori Shah was also invited to the inauguration, and the poor were fed. All of their furniture was shifted there, but Gulmai was adamant that she would not stay in the new house until Upasni Maharaj himself came and performed the housewarming ceremony.